No movie genre defines less is more, quite like the horror genre. So often in horror, part of the fun is teasing the arrival of some terrifying creature for the longest time, before then revealing that creature in all its glory to maximum effect. However, there are some films who get the first half of that right, then totally stuff the landing with a wet fart of a monster reveal. Is wet fart the right term? Yeah, I think it is, but what I'm going with anyway, yes, that is what I'm going with. Those reveals that are just a total letdown, that is what I'm on about, that sap the energy out of a movie, that remove any sense of dread whatsoever. They are the movies and the monster reveals that we are looking at here today. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the horror monsters that were Scarier before you saw them. The Boogens. The Boogens. This 1981 film kicks off with a group of miners preparing to reopen an abandoned silver mine, oblivious completely that the mine houses subterraneous creatures. Director James L. Conway smartly utilizes a slow burn approach to tease the Boogens, for example, framing so much of the action from the creature's point of view as they stalk their victims around the tunnels. We see the Boogens' prey thrown around rooms, dragged across floors, giving us the idea that these creatures are huge, even more so by corpses being seen with gigantic slashes across them, not to mention the utter dread sold by the cast of this one. So, it is a smidge anticlimactic when, yeah, the Boogens are revealed to be these little spider turtle thingies. Much smaller than we expected, their stubby appearance makes them look more clumsy than anything, and their goofy, cute faces just takes away any sort of fear factor here. The Extraterrestrial, Man vs. Man vs. follows Doug, a survival show host who heads into the wilderness to record his latest episode. However, when Doug realizes he's being tracked by an extraterrestrial, this video, it may well be his last one. I mean, sure, the premise might sound a little like a very bare bones version of Predator, but to its credit, Man vs. is surprisingly tense, with our lead, Chris Diamantopoulos, fantastic at making you think he's being hunted by something truly terrifying, all as the alien remains off screen. Yeah, too bad then that any semblance of atmosphere and terror goes totally, completely, utterly out of the window when the alien finally turns up, complete with a generic design and the most ridiculous CGI. It's not even the alien's appearance that's the biggest problem though, but more its janky movements, the way it runs, jumps, turns, it just all looks so outdated, and this is a film that was released in 2015 as well. We should be doing better by this point in time. Still, Species. Species centers around a bunch of scientists tasked with taking down an alien-human hybrid, that would be Sil, who's on a mission to mate and reproduce. And you know what? It's actually pretty solid. Up until its third act, that is. That first hour or so, it shows Sil as a beautiful young woman, that'd be Natasha Henstridge, with the camera cutting away at those moments that Sil's about to slip into her alien form. And when we do finally start to see that alien form at the end of the movie, it's, I don't know, it's just a little frustrating as it looks like a ropey Xenomorph knockoff, both Sil and the Xenomorph actually being designed by the legendary H.R. Geiger. And while practical effects were used, that final form is mostly brought to life with some rough CGI, the sort of final design that doesn't just look bad, but if anything, it looks incomplete. Little Hal, Basket Case 3, The Progeny. As somebody who is always here for some Frank Henenlotter, I can hear the smile of my voice coming through on this one. I absolutely love the Basket Case trilogy, the story of Dwayne and his once conjoined twisted brother, Belial. And when Belial was removed, Dwayne tracked him down and vowed to kill the surgeons who'd separated them. That was the first movie. And the sequels, they see Dwayne and Belial adopted by the mysterious Granny Ruth, who was inspired to help people with extreme deformities after her son, Little Hal, was born heavily disfigured. In Basket Case 3, Little Hal is rarely seen, though his presence it can always be felt. Ruth's living room, for example, featuring a painting of her boy as a baby, born with multiple limbs. And when the fully grown Little Hal appears later on in the movie, the camera purposely obscures his body, until his full unveiling, which it does fall a little bit flat, I've got to be honest there. I mean, this is clearly just a bunch of crew members sticking their arms through an unconvincing prosthetic body. And then, well then, little Hal doesn't really do anything. He just waves at the camera for a few seconds before the scene then moves on. Frank Henenlotter himself has said that Basket Case 3 is the only disappointment of his career, and while I am one of those people that actually enjoys this film, the little Hal reveal, it really is a bit of a letdown. The Demon, Amityville 3D. Based very loosely on a true story, the Amityville horror centers around a family who are haunted by a dark presence after moving into their new home. The original 1979 movie was a major financial success, taking home over $86 million from a budget of less than $5 million. So, of course, that means follow-ups. Wouldn't you know it, but as of this recording, there are a mammoth 66 movies to carry the Amityville name. Well, unless I'm miscounting, because I went a little cross-eyed, to be honest, trying to list them all. Ranging from mainstream movies, sequels that spawn a franchise from the original film, to all kinds of outlandish, bonkers films that just use a name and, you know, they involve vampires, or werewolves, or Bigfoot, or killer sharks, or killer toilets. And of course, there is the film with a possessed sex toy. Anyways, Amityville 3D, that would be the third film of the main canon, and to be totally honest, it really sucks. There's comically excessive exposition, there's cheap scares, there's a general gimmicky presentation because, you know, 3D, but it's a reveal of its demon that is the worst of the worst. That paranormal entity, it remains unseen for most of the movie, with the possibility that, you know, it's a non-physical force, something that you experience but is not visible. But nah, it turns out it's a rubbery demon in a well, a bubbling well, no less, which makes it look like the demon is just chilling out in a jacuzzi. The Zombie Alien, The Dark. 1979 sci-fi horror The Dark opens in Los Angeles, the city of angels, with struggling writer Warner discovering his daughter has been slaughtered by a serial killer. But the catch here is that Warner soon discovers that the killer, it's an alien. For most of the story, we only see the alien in silhouettes, shadows and quick cuts, and the kills themselves tend to happen in kind of near darkness. But the real reason that the alien is rarely seen? Why, that is because it was not meant to be an alien at all. You see here, the killer was originally meant to be a zombie, which was very much the case during all of production. That is, until the success of Alien 2 months earlier saw the powers that be decide that, yeah, we kind of want a bit of that. With zero time to make an alien costume, the climactic shootout here in the dark was overlaid with special effects so that the villain, that clearly looks like a zombie because it was supposed to be a zombie. Yep, that villain, it shoots lasers from its eyes to give a more otherworldly vibe, I guess. The design of the monster itself is actually fine for a zombie, but those late edition cartoonish effects make this all feel like just a parody film. The Lepus, Night of the Lepus. For a lot of horror movies, it's the cheap costumes and dodgy CGI that ruin their monsters. Not Night of the Lepus though. No. The problem here is simply that the film's monsters are just too darn cute to be scary. I mean, this schlocky B-movie, we've got a small US town that is invaded by giant mutant rabbits, which are played by real-life, normal-sized, cute little rabbits scurrying around a miniature set. And for our human characters, they sell the threat of these bunnies as something horrific, which could have worked if there were some elaborate animatronics or really twisted, demented puppet designs. But no, it's just cute bunnies being cute bunnies, presented as if they're a lot bigger bunnies than they really are. Now, Night of the Lepus could have got away with things if it leaned into the goofy shtick of all of this, but no, the film, it just plays it totally straight, which takes away any sort of fear factor. But hey man, I am here always for some cute little bunnies. The Cave Worm, The Strangeness. The Strangeness begins with a group of explorers venturing into an abandoned gold mine, not to be confused with the silver mine of the Boogens before. No, this is a gold mine. This group, they are in search of their riches, where when they become trapped underground, they are stalked and brutally picked off by a gigantic cave worm. A gigantic cave worm that injects its prey with a corrosive acid, no less, that turns them into gloop within mere seconds. Again, this is another creature that remains unseen serene for the most part, but the fear, it is amped up as our characters, they find what's left of their friends, I guess is the best way to describe it, and it looks properly gnarly. You're thinking this is a very, very monstrous beast to take very, very seriously. But when the worm finally does step out of the shadows, I mean, I was weighing up how to really say this. There is quite a cool tentacle design to the creature, but the head is, it kind of looks, it resembles, I mean, just look at it, use your imagination. I don't want to say the words. And that's not the worst point though, as the decision to bring the worm to life using stop motion just means it moves in a totally unnatural, amateur looking way, just a fail on so many levels, man. The Byram Dreamcatcher. It has been infamously tricky for the work of Stephen King, the legendary Stephen King, to be successfully adapted for the big screen over the decades, or even for the small screen. But few Stephen King adaptations drop the ball quite as much as Dreamcatcher, including Damian Lewis's totally OTT performance, and yes, of course, Morgan Freeman's totally OTT eyebrows. And once our group find a passerby who's infected with an alien called a Byram, you have an initial sense of dread and about what's to come and follow. It's kind of creepy still at this point in time, and there is a really great ensemble cast. But no, it soon becomes tough to take this alien seriously, as rather than, I don't know, bursting out of somebody's body, it's, again, how to say this, it's pooped out. There we go, I've said it. The body horror elements are supposed to be disgusting here, but they just come across as kinda juvenile. And as for the design of this alien, I mean, it's basically a turd with teeth. Or as Morgan Freeman's character calls it, with a totally straight face, and a word I'm not sure if we'll get bleeped on this, but he calls it a weasel. The Sand Beast, Blood Beach. The success of Jaws spawned a deluge of imitators: Piranha, Orca, Great White, all the rest. Even to this day there are films that are trying to copy that blueprint. And though Blood Beach was clearly inspired by that all-time movie, it pushed the formula one step further by having its monster attacks take place on the sand instead of the water. I mean, I guess sand sharks would kind of fuse the two of those things together in 2011, but hey, the less said about that stinker, the absolute better. Anyways, Blood Beach. Here we've got an unseen critter that resides under Venice Beach, pulling its victims below and devouring them. Even though Blood Beach totally leans into the cheesiness, it's still actually pretty creepy at times. Added to that, the monster doesn't surface until the end of the movie, leaving your imagination to run wild, brother, as to what this thing might actually look like. And while the Sand Beast design it's kind of cool in theory, a plant-like creature with a giant mouth akin to a Venus flytrap, that design is let down massively by the puppet's cheap look and poor texture, making it look more like, I guess, some sort of oyster creature thing. Yeah, no, again, ball dropped. Those we don't speak of, The Village. For those of us around at the time of its release, it's really hard to fully explain how nuts that Sixth Sense twist was back then, putting M. Night Shyamalan on the map in a major way, and then to follow that with the fantastic Unbreakable, I mean, geez man, that only cemented Shyamalan's rising star even more. Two fantastic, brilliant, great movies. And for so much of this 2004 film, it looked exactly like that was going to be the case. As a secluded community, they take central stage. A secluded community that lives in fear of the surrounding woods and the monstrous entities that lurk within those woods. Entities simply referred to as those we do not speak of. And when one villager becomes gravely wounded, his blind girlfriend Ivy bravely heads out into the world beyond the woods in search of medicine. However, before she can head out on that quest, Ivy learns the truth that, yeah, those we do not speak of, those we don't speak of, are actually the village's elders in costume, using fear to compel the villagers to stay in the community forever. I mean, this is quite a left field twist, but it's also a twist that just stops the village from being all that scary, removing any terror the picture had drummed up by this point, and it has drummed up a whole bunch of terror. Just such a daft decision. Seraphine, an American werewolf in Paris. The transformation sequence in An American Werewolf in London is a total work of art, earning the film the first ever Academy Award for Best Makeup and being a truly seminal moment for the horror genre and for cinema period. In a major departure from the 1981 original, An American Werewolf in Paris went the CGI route instead of practical effects for its big transformation moments, and not just CGI but bad CGI. I mean, as an example, Terminator 2 had masterfully used CGI 6 years earlier in 1991, or released in 1991 at least. But in 1997, An American Werewolf in Paris delivered some awful CGI as Julie Delpy's Seraphine transforms in an unbroken 25-second shot that felt like it lasted forever, where the camera zooms in on every unconvincing polygon on her digital body. I mean, the Seraphine character was actually an intriguing one at first, but that goofy transformation, yeah, that just kind of sours you on that character and on that film, unfortunately. Pennywise, It, 1990. 1990's two-part It miniseries still holds up so well to this very day, all these years later, causing many a sleepless night back when it aired and in the many years since, with Tim Curry front and centre putting in a magical, menacing turn as Pennywise. Both the child and adult versions of the Losers Club, they all do brilliantly, absolutely knocking it out of the park for what they need to do. But make no mistake about this, it is the Tim Curry show, as he hams it up as Pennywise, which then makes it all the more sinister when he switches things up to be a child-eating monster at a moment's notice. And when Pennywise taunts our heroes with warnings about how horrifying his final form really is, that just totally ups the ante and the anticipation even more as to how he really looks like, what he really looks like. But no, it's a giant spider, isn't it? Yeah, it's a giant spider. It's just, oh my goodness, it's a giant spider, and it's not a very good giant spider. I mean, the reveal itself is pretty disappointing, but it's the execution that really stamps home and makes a mess of all of this. A mixture of stop motion and puppetry being used for this spider form, and the creature's plastic texture and stiff moments, they just strip away so much of the tension that had been built up by this point in time. Frankenstein's creature. Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. The 1950s saw Hammer Studios revitalize several famed Universal properties, including The Mummy, Dracula, and of course Frankenstein. And in terms of Frankenstein, The Curse of Frankenstein was a major success for Hammer, leading to a barrage of sequels getting the nod. But rather than focus on the same creature over and over, each new movie had Dr. Frankenstein create a brand new creature, meaning fans, in theory, would keep coming back to these films to see what the Mad Doctor's latest creation looked like. Oh, but Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, yeah, that was a massive disappointment. I mean, as usual, the creature did not appear until way into the film, but when Dr. Frankenstein unveils his latest creation, there is just a sense of, is that it, really? That's it? Are we sure? Is that nothing else? No, oh, that is it. Okay. Oh, oof, that's unfortunate. Yeah, the creature this time out is actually played by David Prowse, the physical embodiment of Darth Vader for the original trilogy of Star Wars. And the character is covered in a fur that makes him look more like Bigfoot. Then there's the mask, which is so bad that you'd never believe it was a real face. Oh, and oh, yep, there's the shaved scalp, so it looks kind of like a balding ape as well. Yeah, the general designs of the creatures in Hammer's movies, they really were hit and miss, but this one was by far the absolute worst. Blake Lovell, Wolfman. As a longtime fan of Leigh Whannell, dare I say, my close personal friend Leigh Whannell, having interviewed him a bunch of times over the years, I was hoping for something really special with Wolfman. Even more so given the stunning job that Whannell had done with reinventing The Invisible Man, one of the all-time great modern horror movies. And while there were some plus points to Wolfman, it ultimately just did not work for the most part. Here we Blake Lovell, a family man who's scratched by a werewolf, meaning that the curse has been passed on to him. Rather than an immediate, elaborate werewolf transformation, as has been so often the case in this subgenre, we instead see Blake only acquire minimal animalistic traits like jagged teeth and excessive hair, which does actually remind me I'm seriously way overdue a haircut. But with this look for Blake, it's a far stretch from the classic Universal look of decades past. But hey, it's fair to assume that it is merely the first phase of a great transformation, a grander transformation that we will see play out down the line. And while Blake's final form is a little bit more monstrous, it's still way off what audiences expected. And if taken out of context, viewers would likely think that Blake was, just in need of a bit of a shave and a bit of dental work, rather than being an actual werewolf. But hey, still love you, Lee. Can't wait to see what's next. Beast Creatures, Hell Island. Hell Island, also known as Attack of the Beast Creatures, has schlocky B-movie written all over it, and that's never a bad thing, to be fair, man. But it does a fine job at keeping viewers on edge long before the Beast Creatures are seen up close, that is, though. Early on, we a particularly gory sequence of a character having his face melted in an acidic pond, as you do. In another scene, a woman lies awake at night, noting glowing eyes multiplying out in the distance, which is a really great little tense scene, a teaser of a horde of monsters watching on. But for all of Hell Island's smart setup work, it comes as a bit of a blow to see that the beast creatures themselves are doll-sized pygmies. Now, a small-statured killer can be hugely effective. We've seen that over the years many a time, hey Chucky. But the design of these critters is so primitive that it's impossible to take them seriously. And rather than any animatronics, it's clear that, yeah, we've just got a bunch of crew members behind or below these monsters, wiggling them around to simulate walking. And for attacks on our main characters, yeah, the dolls are just thrown at the actors. It's not the best. Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Oh, my boy Jason, and not just my boy Jason, but Jason Takes Manhattan, the much maligned, often mocked 8th Friday the 13th movie, a movie that I will always defend until my dying breath. Oh yes, you can keep your elevated chin stroking horror, give me Jason killing somebody with a flying V guitar and booting over a boombox any day of the week. And ever since taking it from poor Shelley Finkelstein in Friday the 13th Part 3, a staple of Jason Voorhees has been his patented hockey mask. I mean, yeah, sure, the mask itself is not exactly scary, but it's more the uncertainty, the mystery of what grotesque form hides underneath that mask. Alas, as much as I will defend Jason Takes Manhattan, yes, the movie did not have a phenomenal look for its unmasked Jason. In fact, it was the total opposite. It was far from it. I mean, when we see Jason's face during the sewer set finale here, seriously, it looks like the prosthetics, they were made out of paper mache. I mean, it's rough, it's awful, it's inexcusable, it is really bad, and I love this movie. The Newborn, Alien Resurrection. The Alien franchise has given us some of the most terrifying creatures in all of horror history. And then, then there's the Newborn, isn't it, of Alien Resurrection. Oof. Yeah, that thing. I mean, set 200 years after Alien 3, we've got Ripley 8, a clone of Ellen Ripley, facing off against a fresh batch of xenomorphs. And due to ever fun genetic tinkering with Ripley, the xenomorph queen develops a uterus, allowing it to give birth to an alien-human hybrid, and that would be the Newborn, a horrendous-looking, bumbling creature it's kind of meant to represent a perfect fusion between humans and xenomorphs. I mean, simply put, it just looked naff. It looked proper awful, really bad. To the point that, you know what, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. So let's just move on. We're swiftly moving on. The Bat Rat Spider, the Angry Red Planet. Even though many special effects from the past, they do seem dated by today's standards, it's to be expected. The visuals in the Angry Red Planet are on just a whole other level. But then, hey, this is a movie from 1959 after all. A sci-fi B-movie no less. A sci-fi B-movie that had a budget of around $200,000. With plenty of corners cut here to create a Martian environment, the cheap film processing cinemagic technique was used to tint the live-action footage in a red hue during our astronauts' time on Mars' surface, and that technique was much hyped in the marketing for the Angry Red Planet. It may have been imaginative, but those Mars scenes ended up just garishly bright, making the Martians appear cartoonish, especially the Bat Rat Spider, which is literally the name this creature was billed as on the film's poster. This is a beast that's meant to be terrifying, but it ultimately looks like it was made out of cardboard, legs dangling and being operated by strings, like something you'd see from a school play. And the reveal itself is so needlessly, I don't know, unintentionally funny, as it's crazy how the rat bat spider was slapped all across the marketing as if this was the be-all and end-all of horror monsters. And even for 1959, this was rough, man.